To get started, here I have 8 guajillo chiles, and I've already removed the seeds, but I want to show you on the inside they can be very dirty and have a lot of debris in there, so you want to be sure to rinse those before you start to soak them, and that's exactly what I'm going to do. By the way, I'm also going to be boiling extra guajillo chiles, and I'm going to reserve a cup of my guajillo sauce because I will be adding that to masa later when I make some tamales, so look for that recipe video. Okay, so here in a pot I've placed all my guajillo chiles. They are cleaned and rinsed and deseeded. So now I'm going to bring it up to a boil, and I am going to shut the heat off once it comes up to a boil, and I'm going to allow the chiles to soak for around 20 to 30 minutes or until they are soft and pliable. And to help them stay submerged in the boiling water while they steep, I'm just going to add a heavy bowl on top. And once they are soft and pliable, I am just going to put them in my blender, and I'm going to add some additional ingredients, and I'm going to make basically a guajillo salsa or sauce. And I do want to remind you that, like I said earlier, I'm actually boiling and steeping extra guajillo chiles because I'm reserving some of the sauce that I make for another recipe, but in the description I'm only going to put the amounts for this particular recipe. Okay, so now I'm going to add 1 cup of chicken broth, and this is just going to help make everything blend better in my blender, and it also is going to add good flavor from the broth. You could add some of the boiling liquid, but I think chicken broth tastes good. So now I'm going to add 1 roughly chopped medium onion. And I'm also going to be adding around 5 to 6 cloves of chopped fresh garlic. Now the next ingredient I would be adding would be Mexican oregano. But like I said, I want to reserve just these ingredients. Once I blend them, I want to reserve a cup because I'm going to be adding this to masa for tamales later. So I don't want to add the oregano right now, but if I were just making this stew, then I would add the oregano. But I blended it, I took out my cup, and now I'm going to add the oregano and blend it some more so I can put this into my pork chili stew. And this is 1.5 teaspoons of Mexican oregano. And again, you can add all of this initially and blend it up, but I did reserve some for something else. That's why I did it separately. Okay, so I'm preheating my pan, and now I'm going to be adding 3 pounds of pork meat that I've just cut into cubes. Actually, I usually use pork shoulder roast, but this is a variety pack of pork chops that I had that I wanted to use. So you can use either, but pork shoulder roast is usually what I use. And by the way, it is storming outside while I'm filming, and my kid is having a blast. He loves the sound of the rain, so you can hear his giggles. Okay, so I'm going to start browning the meat, but I'm also going to be adding some seasonings and salt. Here I have 1.5 teaspoons of kosher salt. You don't have to use kosher salt. I'm just letting you know what I'm using today. You can use whatever you have at home. And I'm also going to be adding some pepper to taste at some point. And again, all I'm doing is just trying to brown the meat and season it. And if you want more salt or more pepper, again, the seasoning is up to you. I'm just giving you guys what I do. And again, I'm just going to continue browning the meat. Okay, and I'm also going to be adding 2 teaspoons of chili powder. I'm using the Fiesta brand. And one thing that I did off camera that I thought I was filming and I didn't, I added 1 teaspoon of ground cumin. Again, always check the descriptions of my videos because that's where I will put updates or the actual complete list of ingredients, the best that I can. Okay, so my meat is browned and it has rendered some fat. And it took all of like 15 minutes to do so. So now I'm going to add 2.5 tablespoons of all-purpose flour, and I am going to cook the flour out and combine it with the meat and the fat that is in my pot. And this is just going to help thicken everything when I stew it later. And I also want to mention, I call this recipe chile con carne or the chile colorado with, pork stew. So I don't know, I'm kind of wonky with the name, but I will label it chile colorado because this is how I make the chile sauce with the guajillo chiles. And you can also add some New Mexico chilies. I forgot to mention that. And if you want a deeper color to this, you could also toast your chiles before soaking them. My grandfather actually told me that. He saw this footage and said, wow, that's really bright red. He says, you really need to toast your chiles. Okay, Grandpa. So that is Grandpa's advice. Toast your chiles first and then you soak them. But I kind of got lazy and I just skipped that step. So that's something to bear in mind if you want a deeper, richer red color. Okay, so my flour is cooked out. So now I'm going to add that bright red sauce that my grandfather said was too bright red. I'm going to add that to the pot and cook that out for a couple of minutes and combine it with the pork. Okay, so next I'm going to be adding some chicken broth. I'll be adding 2 cups of chicken broth, but what I've done is actually poured it back into the blender and swished it around just to get any residual puree that was left in the blender. So now that this is combined and I let it cook for a couple of minutes, I'm going to be adding 2 cups of chicken broth. Again, I like to use Knorr seasoning, and I know for those of you that just don't like MSG or what have you, use the chicken broth of your choice. But what I did was added 2 teaspoons of chicken bouillon base powder to 2 cups of water, mixed it, and that's how I get my broth. So now that everything's in the pot, I'm just going to stir and combine it and wait for this to come up to a simmer. And before I forget, I'm also going to be adding 2 dried bay leaves. Again, I'm just going to give it a mix and wait for it to come up to a simmer. Okay, so now that my stew has come up to a simmer, I'm going to cover it with a lid, lower the heat, and cook it for 45 minutes. Again, you don't want to cover it with the lid and leave it at a medium or high heat. It'll burn, so you want to lower that heat and let it stew for 45 minutes. And I also will stir it throughout the process, maybe once or twice. Okay, so it has been 45 minutes. I'm just going to give it one last stir, and I'm actually ready to serve this. This goes fantastic with a side of charro beans, Mexican rice, flour or corn tortillas, your choice. It truly is a delicious dish. But today what I'm going to do is actually make some tamales, and I'm going to use this stew as a filling for some of my tamales, just like this. So, as soon as I put the video out for these delicious tamales, I will put the link in the description below and at the end of this video. Now, for those of you that have been following me for the 4 years that I have been on YouTube, know very well that I am influenced in the kitchen by my grandmother, Angelica, and I'd like you to meet her today. Here is some personal footage that I took when I took her some of these tamales. Okay, so I came and brought my grandparents some tamales. Let's see what they think. This is my grandmother, mi abuelita, que me enseñó cómo hacer tortillas de harina. ¿Cuántos años tenía yo?
No, pero de chiquita, como unos 6 años.
6 años. 6 years old, I've been helping my grandmother in the kitchen. Okay, guys, so my grandpa is making his breakfast. They're going to try the tamales at some point, so we shall see. But right now, my grandfather is trying to look for some pickled garlic that we can't find. ¿Cómo le hiciste las enchiladas que como con las tortillas rojas?
Las tortillas rojas
Ujú,
también se puede hacer con el mole.
ujú. Mm.
Dale. Bates si quieres hacerlas con mole,
Ujú,
bates el mole que esté bien delgadito.
ujú,
Le das una pasadita por el aceite,
Ujú.
un poquito. Y luego ya lo metes al chile.
sí.
Y luego ya tienes acá, si quieres hacerlas con puro queso,
Ujú. Pero,
el queso va y entonces bien
¿qué
molidito.
tipo de queso usaste
La
usted?
vaquita.
Ajá.
La vaquita.
Oh, de vaquita. ¿Queso fresco o qué?
Queso fresco.
Queso fresco de vaquita. Ah, ok.
Gracias por ver el canal
Ajá.
de mi nieta Angélica. Vale.
La gochujang.
Ah, no, señora. ¿Qué dices tú?
Sí. Oh, es un video. Foto, foto.
Nos parecemos en la cara.